In your first job out of undergrad, odds are you have no idea where to go in your career. That uncertainty gets worse over time, unless you do something about it. And we're going to solve that problem today. I'm going to share a powerful career mapping tool and an exercise that'll help you chart your career in 10 minutes. Hey, I'm the cartographer. Make sure you like and subscribe. Say your boss gives you an assignment. It's your first job out of undergrad. You're sitting at your cubicle, and you know pretty much less than nothing. You open up his email, and there's 20 words that you've never even heard of. What do? This is the experience of millions of 20-something young professionals in America, and it continues to get worse because you begin to start to have questions about if you picked the right career path at all or if you're good enough. Check out this thread from Reddit. This person lost their job during the pandemic, and they're trying to figure out where to go next. Where do I go when I don't know where to go? Unquote. That's how they ended their post. But it isn't just the experience of the original poster. Check out the comments. Even people with jobs are struggling. They're lost. Why is this happening? When we start out careers, we don't know anything. In fact, we don't even know what to begin searching for or what to even ask. The first year or two is usually a kind of trial by fire. It's not easy. How do you speed through that phase? How do you decide what you want to do long term? But before we answer that question, first we have to admit the real problem. We're lost and we don't really have a path. But it's not enough to just say we're lost and leave it there. We have to be specific. What kind of lost are you? Because there's different types of being lost. There's a kind where I know where I'm going, but I took a wrong turn. That's probably about 20% of people who had some role models or career templates to follow. They know where they're headed, but they've gone off track. It's not terribly hard to recover. The second type is the type that says, I know where I am, but I don't really know where I'm going. That's probably about 40% of people. They pick a career path, got a degree, but now they're unsure of what to do next. Do they stick it out? Do they pivot? If so, where to? The third category is I don't know where I am or where I'm going. That's probably another 40% of people. They're not even sure where to start. That's kind of that person in the Reddit post I showed. When you start your career, you're in that third bucket. You're utterly lost. You hope you can move up the chain to more awareness over time, but some never make it. They stay stuck, and they're not sure how to get out of the rut. And what's scarier is, as time has gone on, especially recently, more and more people are in the third bucket. Why? I'll sum it up this way. You don't know what you don't know. So let me explain. In 1955, two psychologists, Luft and Ingram, were studying people as they interacted in groups. And what they found is that when people in groups communicate, their conversations had sort of a varying ability to reveal more about each member's personalities and goals, or less. Some conversations revealed a lot, while other conversations were dull or meaningless. In their mind, if only there was a method to get at the hidden recesses of the human psyche, to really become more aware of ourselves and each other, especially in teams. That's how the Johari window method was born. When we look at an individual, obviously there are things that they know about themselves, and there are things that they don't know about themselves. But because humans are fallible and we're not all-knowing, what we know and what we don't know are actually not universal truths. Our imperfect human perception comes into play. How do we know what we know? Or how do we know what we don't know? Well, we can't really tell if we're just talking to ourselves, unless we interact with others. What we know about ourselves that others also know is pretty obvious. As you live life, people are gonna tell you all the time, hey, you're really good at this. Oh, wow, you're really bad at that. We probably have an inkling as to what's in that bucket. What we know about ourselves that others don't know is pretty obvious too, at least to us. We know what we keep from others, our secrets, essentially. But the tricky part is when we try to figure out what we don't know about ourselves. Now in that category, there's stuff that we don't know, but others know about us. Like that piece of food that's stuck in your teeth. And there's stuff that we don't know about ourselves, but others don't either. And that last category is the mythical bucket of unknown unknowns. It's the ultimate form of ignorance. So that's the beauty of the Johari window. The exercise that Luft and Ingram created helps us figure out what others know about us that we don't know. And hopefully, the method reduces that box of unknown unknowns ever so slightly. While not perfect, The method actually helps us understand ourselves better. So we'll talk about that method a little bit later in this video. But let's come back to careers and jobs. If you think about it, you may already see the benefit that the Johari window exercise has in career planning. You can figure out your hidden strengths and hidden weaknesses, how you come across. These are important to help you develop a more accurate self-identity. But this category of unknown unknowns is also something important in the business world. Basically, what are you utterly ignorant about regarding your career path or areas of interest? That's a scary question, but it explains why you spend the first few years of your career completely confused. You don't know the lingo, the language, the concepts. You don't know how people move up in their careers or even the typical job titles people take, or what are the jumping off points to jump out of a career or into a career. Ultimately, you don't even know the right questions to ask. Instead, you spend all day Googling randomly and having sidebar conversations at the cafeteria, hoping to find a glimmer of direction. But I can just ask ChatGPT, you may say. But even asking ChatGPT or an equivalent AI requires you to be able to ask intelligent questions. If you don't know that reservoir engineering is a type of subfield in the oil and gas industry, how would you know to ask about how to become a reservoir engineer? You don't even know what to search for. That's why this level of ignorance is so debilitating. If we don't act to fix this, we'll spend years not knowing about key concepts in a field that we're a part of until someone embarrassingly corrects you decades later. Now, how do you tackle this? Basically, you have to immerse yourself in a field. You have to do the extra work, go to the conferences, go to the industry sessions, read the books, watch the videos, all on your own time. That's how your brain's gonna make these connections about your field and what you study. That's why most highly trained professionals like doctors or other sorts of individuals, they go to industry conferences a lot. They have to stay fresh in terms of what's the latest stuff in the field. And so that's gonna take years, right? And it's something it's expected of people as well. The other way people do this is through networking. You'll probably see people as you move up in your career that just meet everyone. They make it a point to talk, because what they're doing with each conversation is not just meeting people, they're learning. They're finding out how they moved up in their career, the moves they made, and then they ask themselves, should I do that as well? So you can see it's a lot of work, right? It's something you have to continue doing even before you get a job. And so that's why we're talking about it here. But what if you could shrink this ignorance much more quickly? What if you could empty out that box of unknown unknowns? Is it even possible? Turns out you can. And so let's talk about how. To sum up, you need a map. Mark Jenkins here agrees. He says that planning a journey without a map is like building a house without drawings. It's basically essential. So when I was trying to become an engineer when I was younger, the first thing I did was think about who else in my friend group or family was an engineer. They're the easiest person to talk to. Basically, they had been there first. So after thinking through who I knew, I realized there were about 3 or 4 people that had that right sort of engineering experience. So I started talking to them one by one. One guy, for example, went to a very experience-focused engineering school, very hands-on, and then he got an internship really quickly in his sophomore or junior year. And then he went to go work for the same company full-time once he graduated. Now, beyond that, I had other conversations with other people that I knew, and so I coalesced around a couple key rules. I knew this much. If you want to do engineering, you go to a 4-year college, get a bachelor's degree, try to get an internship as fast as possible, and then essentially move into mechanical or electrical engineering out of school. That was the extent of my knowledge about engineering. But even knowing that helped me start asking more intelligent questions to whittle down my ignorance further. In a way, my very, very basic knowledge about how the process and progression of an engineer worked was sort of a map. Before the days of Google Maps, we had to plan out trips way in advance. We'd buy these big maps that spanned the entire US interstate system. If you went on a road trip, the map would give you a general idea of the area, but you had to manually highlight the routes you wanted to take. And then, if you saw a city on the map you wanted to visit that wasn't on the main path, you'd just make a mental note to look for the detour sign. But here was the key. No human kept all those side attractions or scenic routes stored in their head. These were just unknown unknowns that you learned about when you looked at the map. After you looked at the map, suddenly you were way smarter. Basically, the map eliminated the unknown unknowns. Every city of note was on the map. All you had to do was look at the map, and then ask questions about the cities you were interested in on the way. So essentially, a map quickly eliminates ignorance and basically helps you plan your future. So how do you take that concept of a map and then apply it to a career? Well, it's simple. We have to build a career map. Obvious, right? But first, we need to point out that not all maps are the same. Some maps give you the route from A to B. Some do that, but also give you the general lay of the land. And then some do all of the above, and then also give you multiple options to get to destination B. So if we're going to build a solid career map, it needs to do at least all of that. It needs to tell us how do we get from A to B, the basic options we have career-wise, and then other ways to get to our end destination. So if we do it right, a career map can actually provide a lot of benefits. It can provide purpose. So if you don't have an end goal in mind, your current role is just happenstance, right? It has no purpose, no larger meaning, and in the end, you'll get demotivated and wonder what's the point of it all. So that's not a good place to be. So a map keeps your eyes on the prize. The other thing a map is good for is tracking ROI. If you know where you're gonna go, you're gonna make the most of your time in your current role. And the next role you pick is gonna give you a higher return because you know what you're optimizing for. Third, a map's gonna help you fuel your passion. Sounds really cliche, but wouldn't you actually like what you're doing? Each job is gonna get you closer to your goal, but only if you have a goal and a map to show you how to get there. And then 4, a map drives efficiency. If you know where you're headed, every step is much more deliberate. You're not gonna waste time getting an extra degree or spin your wheels in a dead-end role for too long. You're gonna know what skills are needed to get to the end destination. So, what does a career map look like? And are there any models out there that we can use? In the corporate world, people use project plans a lot. Basically, here's how it works. A project manager is in charge of running some initiative. There's a lot of people who have to do a lot of tasks in a certain order and time frame to get to the end goal. You might imagine building a car, or launching a service, or running a concert, for example. In the concert example, you have sound equipment that needs to be moved. You have marketing flyers and brochures that need to be printed. You have online marketing footprints that need to be set up. There's tons of stuff that need to happen. All of that is tracked by someone typically with a project plan. So when project managers map these tasks out, there are tasks that come before, or predecessors, and tasks that come after, or successors. Here's an example of what a project plan could look like. So we've taken inspiration from that and built our own version so you can actually map your career. And what we call it is the precedence map. Here's what it looks like. It's called a precedence map because it shows you in what order your career can progress. It also shows you different scenarios and branches. You may have heard of something called a Choose Your Own Adventure book. It was part of a series back in the day where you read a page, and at the bottom of the page, it's going to give you a choice. It's going to say, if you want to do this thing with your main character, go to this page. And if you want to take another route, go to this page. When you go to each of those pages, there's a whole nother adventure that essentially unfolds, right? This is the same thing. Now, what you're looking at is a finished product. It's actually someone's personal and actual precedence map for their career. The way they put this together is they spend a lot of time thinking through these career decisions, the options they have, and what others have done. It's basically a map of what's possible in their career. So you can learn a couple things by looking at this, but by and large, it's most useful for the author. But what if we could shortcut the process a bit? What if you could analyze all the careers out there and identify the common paths people take? And then, what if you could sum it up in one neat tool? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is the typical way people move through careers and companies. Let's walk through it. This tool is powerful because it gives you the specific jumping off points people typically take in their career. What's typical is important because when you're working in a job, most hiring managers are more likely to follow the safe route, the way they've seen others take. The typical path is the best chance you have to move up or around in your career. So let's just take a minute and reflect as you look at this. Ask yourself, how do you envision your career? Maybe you're considering grad school. How does that fit in here? Take a minute and just look at the entire chart. Then take some time to sketch out your own map. It doesn't have to be perfect, but what could it look like? What pieces do you think you'd incorporate into your own story as you develop your career? All right, so where do we go from here? You want to take your sketch and get really specific. Think about your specific career path and find the actual job titles, the number of years in each role, and all the nuances for your career path. Like, let's say you're in finance. Wouldn't you want to know at what point in your career you have the decision to become a corporate finance analyst or go into investment banking or private equity? I mean, those are big time career decisions. You're going to have to figure out the same details for your career map. So the way you do that is you have many conversations with people, you do the research, and you start fleshing it out a bit more. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in this video as well, how you can take it to that next level. But what if doing a lot of that was already done for you? What if we knew the job titles, the jumping off point, so all you really had to do was read it, reflect on it, and pick and choose what you wanted to do? What if that was already done for you? Is that even possible? Well, it is. We've spent a lot of time thinking through what would be helpful for people trying to map out their careers. So we took the concept of the precedence map and we put it on steroids. And we included that in our career path mapper course. Here's an example sneak peek of our precedence map for the engineering division in companies. This map has every typical transition point in an engineer's career, the different types of engineering, where you can expect to end up, and even the career paths out of engineering. This was built based on years of experience we've had working in this industry and talking to people who have moved up in these roles. We noticed that each industry and business function has its own set of rules and lingo and role titles that aren't easy to understand, and they're definitely not publicly available. Well, this changes all that. Instead of doing it the hard way, setting up time with industry insiders, mentors, and doing hours and even years of research, you can skip all those steps. This is literally the cheat sheet. Now you know what to search for, and you know how you can move up in engineering. So let's walk through this map. So essentially the way engineering typically works is you go to undergrad, you figure out what kind of engineering you like. Here you can see many different types of engineering. There are more than this, but these are the main ones. And so one of the biggest bifurcations for a lot of people is, do they like the concrete world or do they like the abstract world? So if you're a little bit more hands-on, mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, those sorts of things make sense. But if you're a little bit more okay with the abstract world, you may be more interested in things like electrical engineering or computer science. Once you do that, you move up, you get a junior role at a company. And then as you move up a position or two in promotions, you then have an option. You can go to grad school for a technical degree, you can get an MBA, or you can continue along your path. So now, this is a really quick summary of engineering, but you can see step by step how actual people have walked through their career paths. This is showing you the typical jumping off points, and you can pick a path and explore it. Or you can steal bits and pieces to construct your own. It's all fair game. Now this is the engineering one, but if that wasn't enough, we didn't just do this for engineering. We actually took all of these industries and all of these business functions and mapped out the career paths that you can take. Now it's important to mention, this course, while awesome in our mind, isn't made for everyone. For a lot of people, they may just be fine with working through the exercise we're about to walk through, come up with a basic framework, and then start filling in the gaps for the next couple of years. But for others, if they're willing to put in the work, if they're willing to put in the time, they're going to really get something out of it. So take a look at this, weigh the pros and cons, and if it makes sense for you, we'll provide the link real quick here for you to look at it further. All right, so let's talk about taking all these tools we've introduced you to and let's figure out how to create your own precedence map. To do that, we need to rewind a bit, back to the Johari window. It's more than a simple example of a concept. The Johari window, it actually can help you figure out the hidden strengths or weaknesses you have. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that exercise and combine it with our typical career progression precedence map to help you draw out a rough version of your own career. So before we begin, you're going to need a friend, because basically you're going to ask them questions, they're going to ask you questions, and both of you will have an assessment when you walk away with this. So step one, you're going to see this list of adjectives on the screen. First, you need to ask yourself, which of these adjectives accurately describes your personality, and then mark them. And then do the same exercise and assess someone else. Ask, which of these adjectives accurately describes the personality of your partner? Now, once both of you have done this, you're going to take your adjectives and share them with each other, and you're going to bucket them. And here's how that works. Anything that appears in both lists is a known, meaning you know it, they know it, you're good. Probably shouldn't be a surprise. Anything that's on your list about you, but not on the other person's list about you, is something that you're aware of that others don't really know about you. A secret, let's say. And then anything that others know about you that you never knew about yourself, that's something that you're oblivious to, and it's something you need to take a note of. And then finally, our favorite category, anything that's not on either, it's actually something that's unknowable. You may be those things or you may not be. The only way is to ask lots of people and be honest. So now that should give you a better idea of your true identity and traits. The next step is to sit down and think about what are your interests and what career paths are you interested in. Now, once you're done with that, take some time and then use the typical career progression map that we provided and draw out how you think your career might turn out. Get specific. Write out the years, the degrees, the specific jobs, and where you think you'll end up. So one useful way to think about this is what are you going to be doing in a year, 3 years, and 5 years. Now, once you're done, you'll have a draft of something you can use and validate by talking to people in your field. Find individuals that are in the field, talk to them, start fleshing out what you've drawn there, and then ask for their feedback. Is what you're writing down and drawing realistic or not? And then tweak, because ultimately, the more people you talk to, you're going to refine your map. Or if you want to speed up that process, like I mentioned, check out Career Path Mapper. All right, so we covered a lot today. You saw why you need a career map. We provided an example of how people typically move through their careers, and we showed how people in engineering can navigate things as well. So hopefully you've used all of these to start fleshing out your own career map. So finally, here's 2 questions for you. First off, was this helpful? And then second, what career paths do you have questions about? Leave your thoughts in the comments and we'll get back to them.